Hi, I'm Sam Sorbo. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Gina Carano situation and censorship. And also, I've got some great audio for you from Kristi Noem. This is very interesting, I think. Also, there's a story out of Philadelphia that I want to go into about some fifth graders. And let's see, before I get too deep into the weeds, before I get into that stuff, there's an interesting story going around that's on the Blaze about six Capitol police officers who have now been suspended, and you'll never guess why. So first, let me bring you up to date about Gina Carano's fallout. And the reason that I mention her is because she really did nothing wrong. She mentioned, in a sense, that when the government of Germany waged a campaign to discriminate against Jewish people because of their faith, that was no different than the campaign that's being waged now against certain people for their political affiliations. And so for that, she was summarily fired by Disney. And I've always pointed this out. I don't understand how Disney or the people at Disney, whatever, knew how they could know that she was talking about them, except that they know. They just know. So the fact that they fired her must mean that they are actually okay, that they condone discriminating against people with differing political beliefs, because that's all she said was, hey, that seems like a Nazi tactic, so maybe we shouldn't do that. No, apparently the Nazi tactic was just against the Jews, and therefore, but it wasn't, of course, it was against gays, and it was against priests and clergy. And so it's just fascinating to me that they took it so personally. And that not that they took it personally, because they probably should have, right? But that they so openly recognized themselves in her critique. And that really says something. So to bring you up to date, yes, my husband's Facebook page has been canceled. By the way, if you don't get my emails, or our emails, I should say, please reach out. Go to samsorbo.com or go to sorbofamilyfilmstudios.com and sign up for our emails. We don't send them very often. I don't know, maybe once a month at the most, because I have no time. And by the way, how do you like my new digs? This is my new office. I'm very excited. And I just discovered that I have lights back here. That's kind of fun. Very pretty. So go to Sorbo Family Film Studios and do sign up for our emails, because we do want to stay in touch with you come what may. And honestly, what may come is that we are completely censored off of the tech resources, the larger tech resources. I mean, Kevin had 550,000 followers. That's over 500,000 followers. And they just shut him down. And then you have to ask, what about all the followers? Aren't they upset? Is there nothing that they can do to talk to Facebook? Although I will say, I read a story the other day about Quillette. If you haven't heard about Quillette, it's an online, I think it's online only. I don't know that she does printing. The editor is out of Australia. She just started this sort of online magazine, just a couple of years ago. And it's grown like wildfire because she's willing to print some controversial things that other publishers simply won't print. It's fairly long form. The articles tend to be long and involved, and yet it's extremely good. I don't agree with everything I read there, but it's exciting to read because these are typically well thought out, well researched opinions, and so she's the gal who runs it, curates them, and she's done an amazing thing. Well, and by the way, it's generally sort of opinion based on research, right? It's generally, as far as I know, it's pretty much opinion papers, but not, how do I put it? But factually based opinion page, not just rants, but, here's the observations. This is what happened, like reporting, and then some opinions. And Australia is cracking down on Facebook to the extent, no, it is cracking down on big tech to the extent that they want to put some limitations on the way that information is transmitted. And Facebook doesn't like that. And so Facebook said, well, then we won't carry any news on our site, which means that her page, even though it's not really a news site, was summarily suspended, basically, along with the Weather Channel, for instance. This is Facebook. To tell it the way she tells it, it's Facebook basically trying to strong arm the Australian government and say, if you do anything that we disagree with, you will be punished. That's basically the way she put it. So we're not done yet. This battle is ongoing. Just overall, it's going to keep going until we reach some sort of conclusion. And the thing that I talk about with my book, Words for Warriors, the reason that words are so important is because when we are in a battle, we must be able to communicate with our foes, with the opposition. If we don't communicate with the opposition, what's left to us? Violence. And I don't like violence. Most people don't like violence, except for young boys. You know what I mean? So the question is, why is the left trying to silence conversation? And the reason is because they love violence. Otherwise, they would welcome the conversation. They're really, I don't see another way around it. You either agree with them or they will beat you. And they don't want to hear about why you have a difference of opinion. You know what I mean? So, all right. Let's see. I'm going to go over to the Kristi Noem piece. Let's see if I can share this with you. I thought this was really interesting. So she's being asked at a press briefing what she believes about the masks and if she's going to give a mandate. And this is what she says. I said is the appropriate mask at the appropriate time, utilized correctly, kept sanitary, can make a difference. But I also don't believe it's my role to mandate that people wear a mask. I've left for the entire year. They have their personal responsibility to make the best decisions for them and their families, not them to do that. Well, the CDC has changed their recommendations many, many times. In fact, we've seen the CDC change their recommendations based on political pressure in the past. I choose to rely on science and data and facts, and masks can work in certain situations if you're wearing the right kind and you're doing it appropriately. But I'm not going to mandate it. It's not an argument over whether masks work or if they don't work. I've never argued that. What I argue is the mandate. I think the mandate is inappropriate for government to come in and mandate that somebody wear a mask. And I think it's inappropriate for us to shame people who choose not to wear a mask. That's not what America's about. It's not what South Dakota's about. So no double mask mandate. Not coming in South Dakota. So I will not be doing that. That's for sure. So there you go. Good for her. And the thing that I like most about that is that she boils it down to really the crux of the matter. It has nothing to do with how effective masks are. It has only to do with mandates. Is it the job of the government to mandate something on the United States citizen? And especially something, here's the thing, not everybody will agree on everything all the time. And basically, never will everybody agree on everything. So you have to be very careful what you mandate. And you shouldn't actually be mandating much of anything at all. If you really want something, make it a law, go through the proper channels and get it done that way. Heaven forbid, frankly, because I don't I really don't like the masks. So good for her. I was really pleased with that. And I've seen her speak in person. And she is really, she's great. She's amazing. Yeah, I guess we have high hopes for her in the coming days. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to talk about these 6 Capitol police officers. They've been suspended for their alleged roles in the January 6th rioting. There are 29 others under investigation. One officer was suspended for taking selfies with the rioters. That's according to a member of Congress. This is really an amazing thing. And what's funny is part of the reason that my husband was targeted, so to speak, is he had a tweet where they showed some of the rioters who were, how do I put it, had a beard, were wearing black. They looked sort of more like an Antifa faction than a Tea Party faction, frankly. There was no red, white, and blue, which is the typical Tea Party Trump supporter, I guess, is a better way to describe it. And so my husband tweeted, "They don't look like patriots to me." That's all. And for that, he got a bunch of heat slammed on him. And I have a feeling that is some of what led to his persecution on Facebook. And yet now, and I speculated right from the beginning that I didn't think that the riots were perpetrated necessarily by MAGA folk, that I thought they were instigated by Antifa, because that's their tactic. That makes perfect sense. It's right from their playbook. So the Office of Professional Responsibility is investigating the actions of 35 police officers from that day, and that's according to Chief Yogananda Pittman, who has directed that any member of her department whose behavior is not in keeping with the department's rules of conduct, that they will face appropriate discipline. That's according to John Stolness. So Tim Ryan of Ohio said that one of the suspended officers had taken a selfie with the rioters, while another had worn a Make America Great Again hat and helped direct them at the Capitol building. 4 of the protesters died at the Capitol, we know, and they're calling it rioting. I honestly, I haven't seen the video, so I can't comment on that. I think that's an incendiary word that they ought to be a bit careful with, but what do I know? 1 Capitol police officer also died. We know that. And another 2 officers committed suicide in the days following the incident. Early reports indicated that the officer, Brian Sicknick, had been dead from injuries he suffered from being hit by a fire extinguisher, but that account changed weeks later after a more thorough investigation. Gus Papanasiou, wow, that's a big name, is the head of the Capitol Police Labor Committee, and he said other officers received serious injuries, including cracked ribs, brain injuries, and smashed spinal discs. And another officer was stabbed with a metal stake, while a different officer lost an eye from his injuries. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund and the sergeants at arms resigned in the days following the rioting. We know that. But there's more fallout from the Capitol yet to come, I would say. And so this is interesting to me because it's rather in keeping with what I've been suspicious of. This idea that the police took selfies with the rioters, and that they dressed in MAGA. Why would they be dressed in MAGA gear if they're a police officer? That makes no sense to me. So I think there's a lot more fallout yet to come. And then the question is, what are we going to do with that information? Is it going to be used to correct some things maybe that have been mistaken or not? And I honestly, I don't have a good answer for that, sadly. All right. So I do want to talk about there's a Babylon Bee article, which I thought was very funny. And they have a list of updated terms for journalists because Biden is now president. If you don't get the Babylon Bee newsletter, email, I highly recommend it. It's just always a laugh. It's just funny. Or I find it very humorous. It's satire. They have been fact checked by USA Today several times, which sort of begs the question, do you not understand what the word satire implies? Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, in this list of updated, I like this because my book is about these words that they are undoing or redefining or, using wrongly. So the article says this: the nightmare is over now that the evil racist dictator Trump has been removed from office by the power of democracy, and a 30,000 man standing army. Here's what's so funny about this. Well, first of all, they don't need that army. There are calls now and petitions going out to send them home because there's no reason for them to be the National Guard to be there at the Capitol. But everybody said he was such a dictator and a tyrant. And actually, there's a meme that went around. Count how many dictators. Name all the dictators you can think of who stepped down peacefully in order to hand the power over to their successor. And that is zero, okay? Because dictators don't step down peacefully. Therefore, ergo, Trump is not a dictator, period, end of statement. And shame on you for ever saying that. But is he going to get apologies? Are we going to hear from the peanut gallery that they recognize now how wrong they were? I don't think so. Okay, so now journalists can now resume their normal routines of napping on the job and writing about ice cream. I love these articles. But the last 4 years have taken their toll. Journalists have been using over the top hyperbole to heroically remove the president for a long time now. We at the Babylon Bee, they say, we want to remind journalists to stop using the terms you've been using for the past 4 years, now that a compassionate and wise leader has entered the office. Here's the guide. Okay, so the outdated term now is evil. We don't use evil anymore. We use nuanced. Okay. And then for lie, we don't say lie. We say misspeak, because Biden never lies. Trump lies. Biden just misspeaks. But boy, does he misspeak a lot. Instead of saying baseless claim, you should say strong assertion. Instead of saying overreach, you need to now say bold leadership. I have an itch on my nose. Okay. Instead of saying kids in cages, shh, silence, don't say anything. Instead of saying reckless spending, you say investment. It's not reckless spending, it's an investment. Instead of saying warmonger, you call it presidential. Okay. Just so we're clear, right? This is the revamp. Old words for Trump, now new words for Biden. So where Trump used drone strikes, just say, let's circle back. I love that one. That's a dig at Jen Psaki. Instead of saying racist, because obviously Trump was a racist, so we could use that term just we were at liberty to use that term at any time. Now we say woke. Okay. Instead of saying war, just insert the word peace. Like Trump was looking for war, Biden is now looking for peace. You see, that's the difference. It's nuanced, but it's there. Okay. Instead of saying slavery, just call it freedom. That's what the socialists do. Instead of saying ignorance, call it a strength. And that is the brilliant Babylon Bee, frankly. I just think they're phenomenal. I'm surprised that they're still in business. Happily surprised, if you catch my drift. Okay, so let's see. I want to go over to this article that I just found so it bothers me a lot. The state of our education in the United States. I find it really sad how far we have slipped from the metric. And so this story out of Philadelphia I just found it incredible. You can hear my voices going. I think it's all the dust and everything from the move. Forgive me for my husky voice. All right. So this is off of City Journal and written by, let's see, Christopher Rufo, who writes a lot about education. God bless him. He starts with the social order and he says, I can't believe this. A Philadelphia elementary school recently forced fifth grade students to celebrate Black communism, their words, Black communism, and to simulate a Black Power rally in honor of political radical Angela Davis. This is in a fifth grade class in a Philadelphia public school. This is what your money's going for, folks. According to whistleblower documents and a source within the school, a fifth grade teacher at the inner city William D. Kelly School designed a social studies curriculum in order to celebrate Angela Davis and praised the Black communist for her fight against injustice and inequality. As part of the lesson, the teacher asked students to describe Davis, describe her early life, reflect on her vision of social change, and to define communist, presumably in favorable terms. They are not concerned with education. They are only interested in indoctrination. That's just the way it is, folks. I don't make this stuff up. I just get the headlines and it strikes me and I say, okay, we got to talk about this. At the conclusion of the unit, the teacher led the 10 and 11-year-olds into the school auditorium where they simulated a Black Power rally to, quote, free Angela Davis. She's already free. She had been in prison for kidnapping, conspiracy, and murder. The students marched on stage. They held up signs. It's highly effective when you force the student to embody the things that you're trying to teach them. It's highly infective, which is actually a good word, and effective. Okay. So the William D. Kelly, I think it's interesting to note that the William D. Kelly School is academically one of the worst performing schools in Pennsylvania. By sixth grade, only 3% of students are proficient in math, 9% are proficient in reading, and by graduation, only 13% of the students at the Kelly Middle School, I suppose it's high school, no, middle school, only 13% of students will have achieved basic literacy. 13%. Basic literacy. That means 87%. Look at me, proficient in math. 87% don't have basic proficiency with reading. And it is a majority Black school. That's because the master has no interest in teaching the slave to read. And then this line, which I found just amazing. Despite the abysmal academic performance, teachers and administration at the William Kelly School have gradually abandoned traditional pedagogy in favor of political radicalism. So we used to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now we're just teaching radicalism. The 3 R's: radicalism, rage, and something with an R. I can't think of it. If you think of it, email me. Go to my website, samsorbo.com. You can always send me emails there. Okay, so last summer, the superintendent released an anti-racism declaration, which promised to, quote, dismantle systems of racial inequality. This is the superintendent of schools. He circulated a memo recommending racially segregated training programs for white and Black educators. He's actually advocating for racism. This is an amazing thing. I think Martin Luther King would turn over in his grave if he could see this. Perpetrated by those who used to have racism directed at them. Well, not them, maybe. The local teachers union produced a video denouncing the United States as a settler colony built on white supremacy and capitalism that has created a system that lifts up white people over everyone else. Can you imagine? And this is what they believe. And when they believe that, as they believe that, understand they're educating Black youth, and they're telling Black youth, you don't have a snowball's chance, and forgive the analogy. You don't have a chance because white man going to keep you down because that's the way that they work. They're being taught that. Do you know how hard it is to unlearn that? And when they shackle the students like that by saying basically there's nowhere else for you to go. You can't go up because it doesn't happen. Never mind that there's ample evidence that it can happen for anyone at any time. They've condemned their students. This is the author writing. They've condemned their students to join the ranks of the more than half of all adult Philadelphians who are functionally illiterate. And it's funny because we know that literacy is a sort of a precursor or a forebear for, well, what's the word I'm looking for prosperity. Nope. Oh, that's pleasant. Okay. Well, I have we'll see if it shows up in the audio. I have a sound going on in the background. One teacher at William Kelly who requested anonymity out of fear of reprisals expressed deep pessimism about the future of public education. Just in general, listen to this, quote, I've come to realize that no policy hurts African Americans more than the public school system and the teachers union. This is what I was just talking about. It is unfathomable, but they are the racists, which is really sad. They are the racists. The school district of Philadelphia has 18,000 employees and a $3.4 billion annual budget. And it fails year after year to teach the basics of reading and writing and arithmetic. But it is teaching rage, radicalism, and ruthlessness. I did it, 3 R's, rage, radicalism, and ruthlessness. Here, last line. As it turns out, education is hard. Political fantasy is a useful diversion. And so what he's, and I think this actually belies the seriousness of this situation. He's saying, well, they just feel like it's too hard to educate. That's not what this is. They are hell-bent on radicalizing the students and to sort of extract some sort of vendetta that they have against, the quote unquote system. And so they're using the system to pervert the students. It boggles the mind, but that's, I have to say, that's what I see here. And so to say that, maybe they just find education too hard, so they opted for this. No, this is a purposeful, serious thing, because honestly, educating a fifth grader is not that hard. So if there's any criticism that I have, Christopher Rufo, of your article, and thank you so much for sending it out via City Journal, it's that you are making, in a sense, you're making excuses for them. And we shouldn't do that. We really have to stop doing that. And that's the message of my book, is this idea that words matter. And when somebody changes the meaning of a word or fails to measure up to something, they need to be held accountable. We need to hold the words accountable. And if we fail to do that, then we're giving a pass on a lie. If we don't want to rock the boat because, well, it's hard to stand up for your feelings and your thoughts and your opinions. And I get it. But if you don't want to rock the boat, then the person driving the boat gets their way. That means the lie stands. And basically that's that. And I can't allow that to happen. So that said, buy my book, Words for Warriors. My goodness, I've been doing such a ton of interviews and things about that. It's really timely, I guess. I didn't like plan it for this, but it seems to tie in very well with, much of current events right now. So, for instance, vaccine. So they use this word vaccine very, very loosely. In fact, they use it to describe something that is not a vaccine. And I know that I meet people every day now who, oh, I just got my shot. I'm so excited. And I want to say I won't get into it with them because they've already done the deed, and there's no point in having the conversation with them. But I do really want to say, did you get a vaccine or did you get an operating system? This quote unquote vaccine is not FDA approved as a vaccine. The FDA approved it, but not as a vaccine. What does that tell you? That's an enormous red flag. And then the president of Pfizer, the CEO or whatever, and apparently several higher ups over at Pfizer, they all said, no, it's okay. I'll wait my turn in line. Other people can have the vaccine before I get it. I don't want to jump ahead. Since when does an elitist voluntarily say that they will wait in line? I'm not an elitist and I won't wait in line if I don't have to. I mean, I will if I have to, but they don't want the vaccine? No, thank you. It's crazy. So all that to say, I don't know if any of you out there are thinking that you're going to get the vaccine. I know that I am thinking that I won't get the vaccine. I just can't do it. It's not proven yet. It's very clearly an experiment with a very large test subject pool. I don't know if you heard the clip of Biden saying how many vaccines were coming out this summer. That was pretty funny. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the vaccine. I think that's it. I'm going to end the show early today because I know my friends in Texas, they want a full hour, but I've run through everything already and they're snowed in. So this isn't going to air for them. So I'm just going to leave it here. Thanks so much for listening. And by the way, do get a copy of my book. Buy a copy for yourself, buy a copy for a friend, buy a copy for a lefty, who needs a dose of the truth. This is Sam Sorbo signing off. Thanks.